On this video, guys, we're going to talk about the uprange draw and how important it is to understand the rules and what you need to think of first when you're running this type of a stage. I just have this stick here sitting in front of me just to give you guys an example of a stage that you will probably see. But this line here is also for me to give you a visual. So right now, this is my 180 line on the right-hand side, okay? So if I'm standing here and I turn my holster at all past that 180, so if this is my 180, which is what my gun is on when I'm getting ready to run up range, so let's just say I'm gonna draw and I'm gonna run up range, I'm gonna drag my gun, whatever it is, this position right here is the key. It's the holster, not the gun. So I could take my gun, take it and throw it back, that's fine. The problem is if I move my holster forward at all. So if I break the 180 line with the holster, I break the 180 period. If I take my holster and I take my gun and I just throw it back, I broke the 180. The holster is the key. This is the mark. If it's not behind the 180, so in other words, when I start with an uprange start, I always turn my hip a little bit so that I can actually take my gun and throw it back. That's the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my hip and I'm gonna unbreak the 180. So I'm not riding the line of the 180 at all because a lot of our guns are canted a little bit, right? So we cant them in just a hair. Like this gun, because it's a race holster, I have it canted pretty hard. So right now, if I was to draw my gun, even though my holster technically hasn't broken it, the gun has. My gun's pointed in front of me towards my knee. Right? So it's pointed in front of me. So I actually need to turn my gun enough so that wherever I'm looking, that gun barrel doesn't break the 180 as I draw it. So that if I turn, it's not going to break the 180 at all. Right? I want to make sure that I don't break the 180 before I even start drawing the gun. That's the first thing. That's where you see 99% of your 180s is people are already set up on the 180 line when they draw their gun. And if you move it all before you even draw the gun, you've broken the 180 automatically. Now, let's get into the tricks, how you start on an uprange start. It's very, very simple. It really is. And it will keep you from DQing forever. You will never DQ on this if you focus on it. It's the most important thing. And I teach this in just about every single position that we do in the draw. Gun first. It's always gun first. So if I'm up range and I'm standing here getting ready to draw, I'm looking back. Before I ever make my first push, I'm getting that gun out of the holster. So what I mean by that is on the beep, listen, watch the gun come off the beep. Ready? Here we go. Before I ever made my first move, I made sure I took the gun out of the holster. It's the most important thing is to get the gun out of the holster. So again, if I'm coming up here, I'm gonna make sure that I'm not breaking the 180. So right now I'm pretty much facing downrange, right? I'm downrange right now and I have to turn this direction for me to run. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm downrange. First, have my hips turned. And I don't really care about my hips as much as I care about my gun angle. So if the gun is in front of your right hip, and it's angled more towards the center of your body, you have to think about which way the gun is pointed, okay? So the gun's pointed, whatever way the gun is pointed is the way it's gonna come out of the holster. The holster doesn't allow the gun to come out and just spin it. You have to take it out first and then turn the gun. So that means you have to focus on the angle of that holster first. Last time, here we go. Focus on me getting after the gun first. It's the first thing I think of. Then I make my move. All right, it's always and always will be gun first. If you don't get the gun, you can't get a grip, you can't pull the trigger, you can't get the gun out safety, and you can't finish the match because if you turn and you try to draw later, you're guaranteed to DQ. All right, guys, if you have any questions, hit me up in those comments and I'll see you on the range.